Hey everyone, Dan here. Before we get into it, if you enjoy these videos, please hit the like and subscribe button. And keep in mind that these are my own thoughts, opinions, and ideas. These are not meant to be, nor should you take them as, investment or trading advice in any way, shape, or form. Do your own due diligence, put in the work for yourself, and make your decisions based on that. Enjoy. All right, folks, here we are on Monday, April 15th. We're going to take a look at Palantir today. So we've been watching Palantir for a long time. On this recent push, just grab this area here, we've been watching a couple of things. This head and shoulders that you see here, as well as the continuous sort of drawdown through levels that we've had on the chart from all the way up toward the $28 level. So that's on this chart. On the Thinkorswim side of things, we've been looking at a potential sort of VAMI down pattern. I can explain what that is, as well as the TTM squeeze indicator throwing a relatively recent trigger and fire at the mid-range of the channel. So let's start here on the Webull side of things. The levels that we have on the chart, that's the basic purpose of this one. 2310, the nearest in support level that we had, and you see it came down, tried to catch support there on the initial dip down, and fell through, tried to regain it here, a nice push, but has subsequently continuously hit its head on it. And then today, when it hit its head on it, came down quite a bit. You see down over 3% today, and just couldn't really make an approach to that 23 level, which has been the case now for several trading days in a row. Now, during that period, buyers have been showing up right around this, say, just under $22 level, just above where it is now. So right around here, around $21.95, buyers have been showing up. So the question to me at the moment is, in the very, very short term, tomorrow at open, or in the pre-market, or in the after hours today, what do buyers do with this level? Do they once again step in pretty strongly, come in and at least push it back up through 22? Or is it one of those cases where it went to the well too many times and the well is dry, meaning it kept looking for buyers to show up at this 21.95-ish level, and eventually there just aren't buyers there? And if so, what does that mean? Well, on this setup, that would mean looking for support around this 21.21 level. You see this previous top at 21.21 there. You see this near in support level that it found here, and this 21.38 was the support level it found on this day. And so that would be, the next potential area to look for. I guess you could maybe say the wick on this candle was 21.72. That was the low of this day. So we haven't seen a retest of that level. Obviously, buyers showed up well enough to wick up the candle on this day, as well as then put in a further up day that tested that 23.10 range. And then again, that's where it tried to push back to that 24.17 level, but it got pushed off, and then it couldn't hold either of them, 24.17 or 23.10. So I guess we could say maybe, I'm basing this off of one candle basically, but maybe there's the potential to see if buyers do step in at around 21.72 or so. You see in the after hours right now, 21.86. So that said, if it does continue downward, 21.21, and then if it can't hold that, you do see a really thin price action through this area, at least as of late. If we scroll back and back and back and back, it was coming up from below. And so just relatively thin price action to go off of in this range. But 21.21, 20.01, and then 19.19, which was a sticking point on the chart for quite some time. So those are the levels. Those are the questions. And then, of course, there is a gap down here for what it's worth. Doesn't mean that it has to come into play, but if it does, it would get into that gap around 1976, and it would fill it right around 1787. So percentage-wise, obviously quite far away still, and several levels to get through, and potential support areas, like this wick that we were just talking about, and then levels in blue. Now, in the Thinkorswim side of things, different setup, different sort of view. But what we're talking about here for the last few videos was the potential for a VAMI down pattern, which just means the idea here is that this green and blue wave cloud start to take the shape of the nose of a dolphin. So you see here, you see sort of the curved back of a dolphin, and then the nose of the dolphin coming to a cone or a point, and a couple of fins, right? That's like areas here where price shot up and then reverted back down to the mid-range of the channel therefore creating this sort of curved back and then snout. And what you look for there is essentially capitulation and a strong down motion off of that. So like vomit down, meaning I guess crudely vomit down. But I have a lot of respect for the creator of this setup, and so I don't say crudely in a demeaning way at all. But in any case, that's what I was sort of wondering, if that pattern was taking shape here. For the moment being, that could certainly be the case, as well as, as the price was at the mid-range of the channel, it started to trigger here in the TTM squeeze indicator. And what we always look for as things are triggering is a big move. Not only that, but it was, in my estimation, a re-trigger and a refire, meaning you see 3 candles here that it was triggering as it was pretty high up in the channel, or even here up out of the channel. And then it fired and sort of drew it back into the channel. But to me, that's not really an impressive, really strong, TTM squeeze indicator, trigger and fire, and it gives an explosive move. To me, that's a little bit of a move, but that's not the move. And then what I often look for is re-trigger, refire. And this was pretty quick. So trigger, fire, just comes back down to the mid-range. As it's at the mid-range, triggers again for, I think this is 5 candles, if I'm seeing that correctly. 5 candles, starts to move down, then it fires, and then it sort of has this battle, right? It pushes off the lower bound of the channel, tries to battle its way back into the mid-range of the channel. It's the same battle that it was having as it was continuously bumping its head on that 2310 level. It just happens to be sort of a confluence of events or patterns between these two charts, which is always interesting to me when these two charts are coming together, because these are the two that I rely on. So now we see, as of today at least, bearish momentum picking back up, as we had decreasing bearish momentum on the histogram, and then today throwing a stronger red candle in and potentially showing the pickup for bearish momentum. So will this lead to a really big move? I don't know. And if it does, which way does that move go? I don't know. To me, I like to see the big moves throw something out of the channel. Here is a perfect example. You see this trigger pattern, trigger period, I should say, at the mid-range of the channel, triggering, fires. And what happens when it fires? Up out of the channel. Sustained momentum up out of the channel. Draws back in, has more momentum still. It's bouncing off the wave cloud. That's how you ended up getting these fins. And, that last period out of the channel, that's when it draws back in and starts to re-trigger. So that's what I'm looking for, something that's pushing this out of the channel one way or the other. If it doesn't play out the vommy down and it fires, and for some reason we get pushed up out of the upper bound of the channel, so be it. But, that's what I'm looking for if we are going to get sort of a true, air quotes, true trigger and fire that's putting forth the crystal balled, or the the foreshadowed, that's it, the foreshadowed big move. Now, the pieces of the puzzle that could come into play here, as it's wicking off of the mid-range of the channel, if it does come down, right now the lower bound of the channel, 2109, so, that approach to 21 may get some support off of the lower bound of the channel if it does push down that far. If it does come back up tomorrow or in the coming days and tries to regain support at the mid-range of the channel, 2316 is where it's currently at. This channel is dynamic, so it doesn't move with price action, so it may be situated differently depending on when you watch the video. Now, if it does bounce and shoots up, right, ends up actually firing up, 2523 right now is the upper bound of the channel. So this gives us sort of an extra, if it does move within the channel, 2109 to 2523, with 2316 being the mid-range. So those are the views that I'm looking at. The other factor is, of course, the overall market today, drilling down quite a bit, for the large indices, S&P 500 being down 1.2, the NASDAQ being down very close to 1.79%. So that's obviously going to add stress to tickers that have had pretty strong movement lately, especially any stocks considered growth stocks that have seen an uptick. And, they may get sort of the extra burden of a downturn in the market. It may fall more heavily to them. We certainly saw that when the larger market downturn happened a few years ago, a couple of years ago, or however long ago it was at this point. And a lot of those stocks have had a lengthy and painful, and in some cases non-existent recovery. It never recovered from that. I think it may even be more so the case than not for growth stocks. So, we've seen this sort of issue, if we want to call it that, play out before, where again, stock gets some momentum behind it, starts to get some boom, get some wind at its back. It's considered a growth stock still. Market downturns a bit, and that stock that had been on an upswing but is still considered a growth stock just gets kind of punished extra hard, maybe for good reason, but maybe partly at least just because the sentiment around a growth stock versus potential, the potential to foresee a downturn in the market. I don't know if the downturn in the market's going to really happen. I put out a video a couple weeks ago that you could find on SPY and QQQ, and talked about potential support levels there and whatnot. So, go check that out if you want to see where we're situated as it pertains to that at the moment. But this is my take on Palantir. If it does, like I said, if it does reverse fortunes, obviously you can see the levels here. If it does find a path back to 25, we said, 25.23 is the upper bound of the channel here. I have 25.10 on the chart. So again, a good confluence of events at the moment in terms of just sort of the structures of the chart and where the price action is falling. And if it does, like I say, if it does bounce and bounces tremendously, who knows, there could be a really great catalyst that comes along. Palantir obviously very catalyst prone, and can really move off of those things. So if that's the case, and we do get a push, you can see the upward levels here, and then 26.79, 28, that's where it fell short last time. Couldn't really approach 27.50. So 28 and then 29.19. So that was when we were back looking at sort of like, could we find a path to 30 here, right? When we had this motion and it held on so strongly and then pushed again, I was like, wow, this is really impressive. And that was where we were sort of wondering at that point. But then we saw this, potential head and shoulders develop, this potential volley down pattern develop, and things started to look a little trickier. So we'll see what happens. But in any case, I hope that your trading week is off to a good start. And as always, I appreciate you watching, and I will see you in the next video.